Mother's Day or Mothering Sunday? Does it matter? Well, last week I was reading a book by an American pastor. I think he was Presbyterian, and he mentioned that he happened to look up the origins of what in America is Mother's Day. In the USA it happens in May, not during Lent. Back in 1908, a woman called Anna Jarvis had asked her church to remember her late mother. And then she approached the United States Congress. And then from 1914, a Sunday in May was designated as Mother's Day in the USA. What surprised me is that there was no mention of any long history rooted in the church. Well, there wouldn't be, because there's no state church in the USA. And this was a new invention, if you like. But in Britain, Mothering Sunday goes back much further into medieval times, and is very much connected to the life of the church as we breathe in and out the seasons of the Christian year. Mothering Sunday was called Laetare Sunday, or Rejoice Sunday, which came from the psalm appointed for that day. Sometimes Refreshment Sunday, a day of respite from the rigours of Lent, halfway through this time of prayer and fasting. Well, perhaps for very few people it's a time of fasting now, but perhaps a time of more attention to prayer and thoughtfulness. And the associations with mothering originated in some of the texts associated with the Mass on that day in the Middle Ages. And the readings included several references to mothers and metaphors for mothers. And the day became connected with the idea of Mother Church. And of course the cathedral was thought of as the Mother Church for all the local parishes. And in our day, the awe-inspiring architecture of a cathedral still, I think, lifts our spirits and gives us a sense of wonder as we look up. Local churches as well, built with high ceilings to raise our eyes up, to lift our spirits. And people of many denominations will go into a cathedral, perhaps light a candle or sit quietly. And of course, many people without faith, or people with a deeply questioning faith, also are drawn to cathedrals, to that sense of a mother church. Also, though, in the Middle Ages, people might go back to the place where they had been baptized. And that was their mother church. And I think some people still do that. And as the traditions developed, as we know, it became a day when servants could visit their family and their mothers. So there are pictures here of the church as a place of nurture, but also all those other places of nurture in the family, in our communities, places where we can grow and where we are cared for and where we can develop into mature adults. Well, the lectionary readings have changed over the years, but there are readings for Mothering Sunday as well. We've heard some of them. The story of Hannah happens in the sanctuary at Shiloh, north of what would become Jerusalem. But this was long before the temple had been built at Jerusalem. This was the time when the Ark of the Covenant was still being carried around and then kept in safe places. And Shiloh was a sanctuary, a holy place where the Ark of the Covenant rested, holding its precious contents of the teachings of God. And Hannah takes her longed-for child to Eli the priest to serve God. She gives thanks to God for the new life she's been entrusted with, and then she gives this new life back, shares it. And then the psalm of ascent, a psalm about going up to the temple in Jerusalem, so something written much later. Part of the pilgrimage made by many Jewish people, and of course later by Jesus and the Holy Family. People went up to the temple on pilgrimage at special times of the year. And as they went, they sang songs and sang psalms together as they journeyed to be closer to God. And the psalm that we read is an unusual one. The psalms of the centre are all short, because I suppose people had to hold them in their heads and memorise them. But this one it's about human need of God, about humility, about being like a weaned child, being like a child looking to God as our mother. And then we also heard a snippet from Luke's Gospel about the infant Jesus in the temple. And Simeon speaks of the baby's significance. And he gives a blessing to the family. But he warns that it will not be an easy life. The birth of Jesus is not just a pretty story. For Mary, it will not be motherhood and apple pie. Jesus' work among people would bring divisions, problems, resistance, conflicts, as the justice and the mercy of God confronted the ways of the world, the ways of the people in charge, the ways of the powerful. And Simeon says that Mary's heart will be broken, but still, now, her calling was to give nurture to the infant Jesus. And St. Paul picks up this theme of struggle and pain in his letter to Corinth. Paul knows full well that life is not simple or perfect or predictable for people of faith, because all people are broken in some way. And Paul says that God gives us consolation, comfort, kindness. And this is something not just for us, but something we are called to pass on, to share each other's burdens, problems, hurt and pain, as well as each other's joy and happiness. God calls us into a relationship, to caring, to giving nurture for each other. Mothering Sunday, a day to give thanks for mothers. But of course we do need to acknowledge that for some people the experience of growing up has not been comfortable. Not all parents get it right, and some people are very hurt and carry painful memories of family. But we also remember God today. God whom we learn about through Mother Church, through the stories and traditions and scriptures passed down to us. And again, some people carry hurt and pain experience through being part of the church, where terrible abuses have happened. But we remember that the Church of Christ is bigger than us, bigger than our local congregations, bigger than our denominations. The family of church, of Christ's body, links us to other people across the divides of denominations and traditions. The church is a great cloud of witnesses, which can lift our thoughts to people whose experience are vastly different from ours. We can pray and express solidarity with those who are suffering in war, for those who live in hunger, for those who are intimidated by the cruelty of man. So Mothering Sunday is much more than a secular date in the calendar, perhaps an excuse to spend some money. God invites us into the relationship of love. God, who is like a mother and like a father. God's parenthood offers us the example of relationship, the reality of relationship. God, who is the Trinity of love, and who has made us so that we can know and share the gift of love. Let us sing together. Now thank thee, all our God, with hearts and hands